Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So today's upload we'll be talking about the snow system that's going on right now across really mostly North Dakota, Nebraska, and Wyoming. Though it will continue to sag into the south, into Colorado, New Mexico, Colorado, the Oklahoma Panhandle. As it moves to the south, it will bring a threat of snow, freezing rain, and sleet along with it, as well as a good amount of rain to the areas where it won't be cold enough for that transition into wintry precip. So I'll go over those details and just the major aspects to this, where the heaviest snow will fall, where the heaviest rain will fall. And I do apologize if you hear a stomping upstairs. I'm in a basement, so those noises may be sometimes penetrating through, but and I'll be talking about what this storm system may do in the long term, which is actually pretty interesting, maybe even evolve into some sort of a northeast-like system. Alright, let's start looking at the HRR model, the HRR, High Resolution Rapid Refresh. The High Resolution model is often utilized for short-range events, and that's really only when it can be utilized, as this model goes out to 18 hours, so really not that much, not even a full day. And every 6 hours, 18Z, 12Z, 00Z, and 6Z, it goes out to 36 hours. Let's go to the latest model run and see what it does. Okay, so right now we have the storm system centered across really the heaviest snow is falling across again, as I mentioned, the Dakotas, Wyoming. This spreads further to the south, but I want to point something out. It takes its sweet old time across the upper plains and into the really the western Midwest. It sits there for quite a while, which allows maybe the snow to, the snow is not falling at a very heavy rate, right? But it allows the snow to accumulate to maybe, even a foot in some locations because of how long this event will be relatively. So notice it already snowed across these locations. It continues to snow the next few hours, and for the most of this forecasting period, you could see Dakota, really South Dakota, western portions, northern Nebraska, and a good portion of eastern Wyoming continues to seeing snow, as well as southeastern Montana. This slowly spreads into Nebraska, but I mean, this is now early Sunday, the wee morning hours of Sunday, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and this thing is still just exiting these locations. And notice what it does. It kind of gets split apart. There's quite a bit of winds going with this, and this thing is lacking of moisture. So what it does, it actually, sends its snow pretty far out into Minnesota and northern Iowa, but it's still relatively unchanged in that large amount of time. And let's take a look at the total snowfall for the next 18 hours. And you could see that many locations seeing over that half a foot of snow, 6+ inches, a widespread area seeing 3 to 4 inches. And that's only 18 hours. If we were to go to the model run where it went out to 36 hours, this is a bit older, so not all of this is as accurate, since this gets updated every hour. Notice with this model run, it sent it out a bit further to the east, but notice that it continues to reorganize itself, doesn't really lose itself across Colorado, and brings snow into Kansas. And some of the rates that it may fall here across these locations are going to be really impressive, maybe the most impressive out of this whole system. And you can see that the total snowfall really starts cranking up across portions of Kansas and into the panhandles. This is a concern because a lot of these locations, while these type of early snowstorms aren't the rarest, there have been many in the past and there will be in the future, it's always a bit of a shock to see 6-7 inches falling after a record-breaking warm summer. And let's go to the NAM12 cam. This is a high resolution model as well. A bit worse. I don't like it as much. Has more of a cold bias. Shows more cold air than there actually is. So there may be a bit more snowfall with this model. But in this case, the NAM, you can see its snowfall amounts are relatively conservative compared to the other models, and generally 2 to 3 inches across much of the Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas area. So while it is pretty widespread, they remain light and really not that big of a deal in terms of damage or destruction or significant impacts. There will be impacts, but hopefully not that big. You can see that the snow is falling into Sunday, and it extends all the way into Monday. You can see the storm is still going on across much of the U.S., and the snow is still falling, but it's pretty scattered. We get some ice, rain, and sleet mixing in. And that's still not the full extent, as it could be kind of spinning away across in New Mexico for quite a while. Let's take a glance at what the GFS model shows. This is, again, a long-range model, but it's still used relatively often for short-range forecasts, as it does a decent job. And it's valid to look at it. So notice takes its time through the Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado area, sends some snow into Iowa, Wisconsin, Kansas City, possibly seeing some snow out of this, southern Nebraska, Colorado, and you can see that the GFS does include quite a bit of snow across these locations, as well as an icing potential. This seems to be more and more consistent with more models. A lot of these separate little models are showing a very similar thing, some ice, which would be really the worst case scenario, especially since ice is usually worse than snow, even if it's just a little bit of it. But notice what the GFS does, and frankly quite a lot of other models, it spins the system out here for a while across New Mexico into western Texas, the Panhandle. However, this is what's interesting. In the past few model runs, I've been monitoring the system. Look at this. Look what it does here. Takes the system, dumps a lot of moisture to the northeast, and look at that. Potentially our first snowy nor'easter of the year. And let me tell you why I'm getting more and more confident about this. I quickly just want to describe that because I know I have a storm system already occurring. But this is the GFS. I just showed you it's showing snow, right? A model run prior to it, it wasn't showing any snow. It was showing precip and more of it. If I were to go back even further, you can see it was showing almost no precipitation making its way at all. It's been progressively getting more and more snowy. There's one model that has been showing the snow scenario this whole time, and that's the GFS parallel. I want to show you this. This is the 12Z. Notice, snow, 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 right? And look, huge area of precip, low pressure, and just quite a good amount of snow. And it has maintained its consistency for the past several model runs. If you look, more snow right there. So interesting. We'll have to monitor that. I'm getting a little bit excited, but probably won't be much of that. I don't know. I'm just saying that because you know how the people in the Northeast could attest to that. The winters there have been very poor as of the last couple of years. Total snowfall out of the parallel model, a bit more than an M. Isolated amounts that are higher, but generally, I would still say they're on the same track, same consistency. You could see not much additional snowfall in new areas. This model does differ because it shows more snow across New Mexico and a bit more precip. But let me tell you, that's good because these areas are so dry. They need precipitation in any form they could get, and that will come in the form of snow for a good portion. But in terms of precipitation, there will be, as I mentioned, quite a bit of rain with this, especially across Oklahoma, Arkansas, those areas, wherever it sets up, and of course if it moves into the Northeast. But that's better than nothing, and they will definitely take that any day of the year. Canadian model, we could look at this, and we have quite a bit. Speaking of New Mexico, there was a viewer that is, I think, from New Mexico, Arizona, and says that they haven't seen a single measurable amount of precipitation of water. I forgot what the exact measurement was, like over 100 days. It's been, I think, a record. So they really need that rain. Extreme drought across those locations. But Canadian model, you can see that it shows a lot more across these areas and generally the same across the west. Let's take a look at the total snowfall accumulations. Definitely shows more across the mountains and a bit more maybe across Nebraska, but generally the same, a bit less across into the southern Panhandle. If you recall, the NAM and the GFS parallel showed a bit more snow across these locations. Let's take a look at the European model now. And I do apologize that I'm moving so quickly through so many models, but I do want to show you as many models as I could show you because it's, these models are kind of like a news network, news source, right? You want to watch as many as possible not to get biased information. It's the same thing with these models. They all have their little agendas. No, I'm kidding. They all have their little stories to tell, and they switch, and it's best to look at the average, obviously. So notice, let's start this out at the beginning. So right now, the snow's across Nebraska, Dakota, Wyoming. This spreads as far as Minnesota, the Mississippi River. And then we start seeing intensification with the European model right there across the mountains. So kind of similar to the Canadian. And it sticks around for quite a while. A little bit of ice falling, a little bit of freezing rain, sleet. We do see quite a bit of rain to the south, and again, this is a pretty big storm, especially admitting the fact that this is pretty far to the south for any winter storm, really. Even during the winter, this is towards the southern areas, but in October it's usually not that particularly usual. It's unusual. And notice that the European, what it does here is this has been like the biggest model that has been showing this. It's just continues spinning the storm here for a while, delivering snow showers, sleet, rain, freezing rain, depending on where you live. And honestly, this probably will be a mixed bag, this area right here. But notice that it does intensify the storm, drop a little bit more snow across the panhandles before it finally moves off to the northeast. And you can see that the European model is in support of showing that big northeast system, but it's snow-free and it's not as far to the north. Whether or not this, it actually occurs is still a big question. We are seeing some signs that this is trending towards what the other models are showing, the GFS parallel, and the European kind of has been adjusting to that. And to be honest, with this system right here, the European did a worse job than the other models, which is usually unusual. Which is usually not the case. The European usually does a better job with storm systems. For some reason, the pattern that is going on right now provides it a tougher time. And the GFS parallel is an upgraded model with the newest technology possible, so it has reason to be good. Total snowfall out of the European model, quite significant. Really kind of like the rest of the other models. Maybe a bit more because of all that snow it shows lingering across these locations. I mean, you can see that the European shows just absurd almost amounts of snow across the panhandles. Really, the Texas and Oklahoma panhandle, 16, 20 inches of snow. Southern Colorado, some locations maxing at almost at 2 feet of snow, the highest of the higher elevations. And New Mexico also seeing quite a dose. Colorado, and obviously into Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa. For the most part, the snow system is done across the Northwest where it originally came from, but you could still see Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming seeing maybe an additional inch or two. And the further south you go, the more you will see. You can see the Grand Tetons right there in Yellowstone, seeing almost half a foot of snow additional. So that is something to point out. Now I want to show you a little bit of the National Weather Service. As you can see that the areas of advisory and warning are massive. We have winter weather advisory stretching all the way into western Iowa, and really the snowfall here may be quite significant even for an advisory. Usually advisory is 5 inches or less, but some locations 4 to 6 inches. So definitely interesting. We'll have to see how this occurs. Many locations seeing the first snowfall of the season. I do know that a lot of Iowa already did get snow, or central Iowa did. But the southern locations didn't, and it was kind of a random event, that little band that occurred that one day, so I don't really know which locations did not see snow, but a lot of people seeing their first snowfall. Moving into Kansas, let's see these locations. They have a winter weather advisory. They may update this to a warning. We'll have to see, but I mean, some of these amounts getting pretty impressive, especially towards Goodland and further closer towards the mountains. 4 or 5 inches of snow further away towards the south and east. 1 to 2 inch amounts. Moving into the winter storm warning areas, this is the office of North Platte, Nebraska. Interesting amounts for sure. You can see that they show quite a bit, and whether or not this system intensifies a bit more or less, these amounts can vary. But very difficult travel conditions with slick and snow-packed roads. I wouldn't be surprised if you could see right there, some 8 plus amounts of snow, even maybe a localized foot of snow if they're lucky. I guess if they're lucky, it depends on who you are. Most likely unlucky at this point. And then they have a special weather statement for much of right here, these locations: the Panhandle, Amarillo, Dalhart, Dumas, Borger, Pampa, all those Texan cities. The precipitation will be a mess, that's for sure. And you can see show definitely a sign of snow, and if you recall, the European showed quite a bit across these locations, so there's still quite a bit to differentiate. The winter storm warnings across the mountains, the snow will be quite heavy. I mean, you can see quite some locations seeing 24 to 30 in the higher elevations, so I wouldn't say this was over exaggerated by the models. In fact, the National Weather Service is showing more than what the models are. 6 to 8 from Denver right there. So Denver, large city, 6 to 8 inches, definitely impactful. And then into South Dakota, we also see winter storm warnings across just east of Rapid City. Again, still additional 5 to 7 inch amounts. I'm pretty sure these are additional, not total. That would make the most sense. And yeah, that's definitely, and look at that record cold. Definitely unusual. So thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all guys on the next episode. That is it for today. For more information, go to the National Weather Service. Keep an eye to the sky and the radar, and I'll catch you all guys on the next episode. See ya.